Okay guys, today's video is a bonus video that was supposed to come out yesterday, but yesterday ended up being a really crazy hectic day and I just did not get home in time to be able to upload my YouTube video before 9 p.m. So it's coming out today. I'm new to YouTube. I posted my first long format video February 28th of this year, but I've been making social media content for about 2 years now. If you've never seen one of my what sold videos in my YouTube shorts, basically I will go through, pick out about 6 or 7 items that have sold for the week and let you know how much I paid for them, what they sold for, and how long they took. And I have about 200 of these videos in my phone right now. Now, the numbering might be off on these, but I'm going to start with what I think is my very first what sold video. You guys bear with me because some of these are really boring. Some of them I'm sick, so they're kind of boring, but they're a really great resource, and it's about, I'd say, at least 2 months of what I sold. So some of these items might not be selling for the same price, or they could be selling for more just because it has been a little while since I've made these videos. I'm gonna go ahead and start the video. So this is 22 minutes of what sold. Here's another what sold video. I paid $60 for this whole box of plush. I'm already making my money back. I sold this one for $13 in about a month. I picked up this video rewinder about 2 months ago at an estate sale and I paid $1.50 and it sold for $20. I paid $3 for this vintage Stanley cup. I didn't get what I thought I would for it. It sold for $20 in 2 weeks. This is definitely a Bolo. The sell-through rate is crazy on these. This sold within a week. I paid $3.99 for it and it sold for $35. This Pyrex set sold in about 2 weeks and I paid about $6 for it and I took a best offer of $35. I paid $3.99 for these Keen sandals and I took a best offer of $22 on these. I'm really trying to move my shoes right now and get rid of them. I picked up these boots about 6 weeks ago at a garage sale. I paid $1 a pair and I sold each pair on eBay for $20. I paid about $2 for this set at the bins around 7 months ago and it just sold for $65 plus shipping on eBay. I paid $1 for this HP calculator and it sold for $20 within a week. I paid $12.99 for these Ariat boots and they took 2 weeks to sell and they sold for $45. I've had this hiking bag for about a year. I picked it up at the bins for $2 and it sold for $35. These shoes are in horrible condition. I paid $5 for them and they sold for $35 in about 2 weeks. I picked up this vacuum head for $3 and it took about 9 months to sell and it sold for $27. I really don't know what this thing is. I probably paid about 10 cents for it at the bins and it sold for $22. This ceramic head sold for $50. I paid $20 2 weeks ago. I paid $20 for this CD player. It sold for $80 in a day. I paid about $2 for this flatware. This is Oneida, and it sold for $65 in about 2.5 weeks. I paid $3 for this wall art, and it sold for $35 in about 3 months. I sold this empty Versace shopping bag for $22 and it sold in about 3 months. These Asics were part of my shoe clear out. I sold these for $12 and I paid $1 for these about 8 months ago. Same thing for these slippers. I sold them for $12 and I paid $1 for them about 9 months ago. This is actually a really great slipper brand. These boots sold for $45 on Facebook Marketplace. I paid $4.99 for these about 2 months ago. This vintage Tammy TV sold for $15. I picked this little boat motor up about a month and a half ago. I paid $1.99 for it and it sold for $45 on Facebook Marketplace. I paid around $2 for this face cream. It sold within 2 hours for $20. I paid $6 for these SD cards and they sold for $140 in about an hour. This massager has been for sale for about 8 months. I paid $2 for it and it sold for $30. It took about 2 months for these Vera Wang heels to sell. I paid $5.99 and they sold for $15. I paid $1 for each of these pairs of shoes about 9 months ago at the bins. That pair sold for $20 and then this pair sold for $10. I'm really trying to clear out my shoes right now. I paid $1 for this Ralph Lauren sham about 2 months ago and I took a best offer of $22 for it. About 3 months ago, I paid $4.99 for this Ralph Lauren comforter and it just sold for $90 plus shipping. I paid $5 for this cooler about 6 months ago and it sold for $45 plus shipping. I paid $1.99 for these candles and they sold for $15. This witch only took about a day to sell. I paid $6.99 and she sold for $35. These shams probably took about a year to sell. I paid $1.99 for them and they sold for $30. I picked this Big Billy bass up at a garage sale for $3 and it sold for $35 in about 3 weeks. Took about a year for these controllers to sell. I paid maybe $1 at the bins and they sold for $17. This Dior perfume box I bought for $1 and it sold on Poshmark for $20. I have this old iPhone laying around the house. It sold for $35. I may have already showed you guys this, but I sold these boots on Facebook Marketplace for $45. I paid up for this director's chair. I paid $15 for this at a garage sale, and now I'm kind of dreading packing and shipping this one. But it only took 3 weeks to sell, and I sold this for $67.50 plus shipping. I paid $2 for both of these headrests with the screen built in at the bins. These probably took about 4 months to sell. I sold these for $45 plus shipping, and I will show you guys how I pack and ship those. I paid $2 for this keyboard at the bins, and it sold within a month for $67 plus shipping. This is the second time around selling these mugs. This one sold for $125, and I paid $0.25 for this at a garage sale. I might have priced these too low. I only paid $2 for both of these Lancome creams, and they sold within a couple minutes of listing for $18 plus shipping. This automatic kitty litter refill sold for $13 plus shipping, and I paid $3 for this at Goodwill 2 weeks ago. These are the last of these alphabet blow-up letters to sell. This one sold for $20 plus shipping. I bought these at the bins about 6 months ago. These New Balance shoes were in great condition. I picked these up at Goodwill. I paid $8.99 for these, and they sold within 2 weeks. These ones sold on eBay for $45 plus shipping. I picked this track pin up at the bins, and I only paid $2 for this since they consider it to be an electronic, and it sold within 3 weeks of listing, and it sold for $48 plus shipping. It took maybe 2 weeks for these Frigidaire ice trays to sell. I paid $1 for these at a garage sale, and I took a best offer of $20 plus shipping for these. I paid $16 for this froth and sauce machine about a month ago, and it sold for $63. I paid $90 for this Versace sweatshirt for my niece, and she never got to wear it. She grew too fast. It sold today on Mercari for $155. I paid $1 for these Red Wing boots at the bins. It took about 4 months for them to sell. They sold for $20. I just listed this Space Maker can opener. It sold within about 2 hours for $50. I did not inspect these very well when I bought them at the bins. The fur is darker on one shoe than the other. I paid $1 and sold them for $7. I paid 50 cents for this bag of Estee Lauder sample size perfumes. They took about 4 months to sell for $18. I paid 25 cents for this Lionel Train garden flag at a garage sale probably about 3 months ago, and this sold for $21.60. I paid $7.99 for this crock pot a month ago, and it sold for $33. These vintage kitchen magnets I picked up at the bins, I probably paid about 50 cents for them, and they sold for $17. These Santa Clauses I also picked up at the bins. I might have paid $2 for them. They sold for $25. I paid $1 for these bear paws about 7 months ago, and they sold for $20. They're kind of in rough shape. This is in one of my videos a couple weeks ago. I believe I paid $4.99 for this, and it sold for $27 within 3 weeks. I paid $3 for this Copco Dutch oven, and it sold in about a month for $30. I paid $3 for these coffee mugs about a month ago, and they sold for $30. These napkins are Waterford, and I paid $2.99 for all of them, and they sold for $32 in about a month. I probably had this Pikachu backpack for about a year, picked it up at the bins for less than $1, and it sold for $18. I paid 99 cents for this Ralph Lauren baby blanket, and it sold for $12 within 3 weeks. I bought these boots for $1 at the first garage sale of the season 5 months ago, and they sold for $70. This trailer hitch was $1, and it sold for $21 in about 4 months. Same thing for this tree. It was also $1, and it took 4 months to sell. I bought these at the same sale. Keep an eye out for anything Marble Works. This little starter pack I paid $2.99 for, and it sold for $30 in about 5 days. I paid $50 for this comforter set, and it sold within 3 days for $150. I paid $20 for these lights, and they sold in about a month. I probably could have got a little more if I would have waited. I bought this comforter set for $60 at the Ralph Lauren outlet Easter weekend, and it sold for $150. These Lululemon leggings were probably about $1 at the bins, and they sold within 3 months for $30. These Pottery Barn shams were $2.99. I picked them up about 2 weeks ago, and they sold for $27. I paid $10 for these photography books about 7 months ago, and they sold for $60 on eBay. These cube caddies I bought at Salvation Army for $1 about 3 weeks ago, and they sold for $17 on eBay. I've had these Ralph Lauren boots for about a year. I paid 50 cents at the bins, and they sold for $17 on eBay. I picked up this lighted pool skimmer at a garage sale about 2 months ago, and it sold for $30 on eBay. I bought a large Monster High Lot about 4 months ago, and this set sold for $20. About 5 months ago, I bought this flexi cord for $2 at a garage sale, and it sold on eBay for $35. It's been about 5 months now that I bought this big lot of these dolls. This one sold for $15. She's all profit. I've already made my money back. I picked this tray up at the bins about 6 months ago. I paid $1.39, and it sold for $18. I picked up these car detailing items about 4 months ago. These are all profit. I sold one for $15 and the other for $17. Please like. I sell about 20 of these a year. It's the Mr. Coffee iced tea maker. I picked this up for $3 at a garage sale, and it sold within 3 weeks for $30. I paid $4.99 for this toaster oven 3 weeks ago, and it sold on eBay for $44 plus shipping. This little doll was free, and he sold for $22 in about 4 weeks. I feel like I overpaid for this. It was $6.99, and I thought it was going to sell for a lot more than it did. It took about 3 weeks to sell, and I sold it for $17.99 plus shipping. I paid $9.99 for this Christmas Advent calendar, and it took about 3 weeks to sell, and it sold for $50 plus shipping on eBay. I paid 10 cents for this vintage herbal essence mousse at a garage sale about 3 months ago, and it sold for $15 on eBay. These shoes have been in my daughter's closet for years. She never wore them. They sold for $80 on Mercari within a week. I picked up this mid-century modern desk organizer for probably less than 50 cents at the bins, and it sold for $16 in about 8 months. I paid 75 cents about 8 months ago for these 3 casino games, and they sold on eBay for $17. I forgot I had this for sale on Mercari. I bought these, I believe, last Christmas or the Christmas before, and I paid $14 for it, and it sold for $30. I'm really trying to sell stuff from around the house. This is a receipt printer my husband no longer uses. It sold in 3 days for $80. I have 7 of these Versace hangers, and I sold one for $23 in about 2 weeks. I've had these motionettes for about 6 months. I paid $7, and they sold for $50. This nativity scene was in one of my videos about 4 weeks ago, and I paid $10, and it sold for $43 on Mercari. I picked up this baby blanket about 6 weeks ago for $2, and it sold for $45 plus shipping on eBay. A few months ago, I picked up a big Monster High Lot, and I sold this tub and vanity for $17 on eBay. I paid $1 for these flashcards about 4 months ago at a garage sale, and they sold for $12.93 plus shipping. This Sunbeam hot tea maker sold for $31.90. I paid $4.50 for it at the thrift store probably about 4 or 5 months ago. This Christmas Village took about 2 months to sell. I paid $9.99 for it, and it sold for $49. At the time when I bought this, there weren't any comps, but I knew it would sell for more than $10, so that's why I picked this up. I sell a lot of filters. I usually pick them up at the bins because they're so light. I maybe paid $1 for this, and it sold for $15. I just want to say thank you to Holly, one of my Facebook followers. She bought this typewriter. It sold for $70, and it took about a year to sell. I paid $4.99 for this VCR 5 days ago, and it sold on Facebook for $87. This actually had the original receipt from 1987, and it cost over $500. I bought 50 of these toothbrush heads 8 months ago. These are my last 4 to sell. They sold for $15. I paid $4 for them. The other one sold within 2 months. Over $150 from this purchase. I paid $2 for this set of silverware about a year ago, and it sold on Facebook for $25. This is an incomplete set. I paid 99 cents for this Ralph Lauren sweater about 4 months ago, and it sold for $28. I paid $1 for this webbing spray about 7 months ago, and it sold for $25. Sony radio sold for $22, and I paid $2 at the bins for it about 8 to 9 months ago. This trash can sold for $12.99. It took about a month and a half to sell. I paid $1.99 for this. These shoes, I paid $1 at the bins, and they sold for $40 plus shipping. I paid $40 for a large Barbie case full of clothes and dolls. This outfit sold for $38.99, and it took about 10 days to sell. This Ken doll also came from that case, and he sold for $15 plus shipping. And he's kind of in rough condition. This Barbie, she also came from the case, and she sold for $42.99 plus shipping. She has some paint rubs on her face, but she's in overall really good condition. I paid $1 for these shoes at the bins, and they took 3 months to sell. They sold for $30 plus shipping. I picked up this bag of plush for $3.99 at Goodwill, and it took 8 months for these to sell. I finally just took an offer of $30 plus shipping. And then while I was making this video, this Barbie sold. She came from the $40 case. She sold for $50. Kids Air Jordans sold for $40 within 2 hours of me posting. I paid $5. They smelled like cigarette smoke, so I had reduced the price on them. This Ralph Lauren sheet I paid $5 for, and it took about 4 months to sell. It sold for $38 on eBay. Order for this controller last summer, so it's been for sale for almost 2 years. It sold for $6. This coffee grinder was $2, and it sold for $30 in about 8 months. This radio sold for $20, and I paid 50 cents for it about 4 months ago. These Lino tracks I picked up about 3 weeks ago. I paid $10 for both packs, and they sold for $38. This inflatable was $10. I picked it up about 6 months ago at a garage sale, and it sold for $65. I listed these Jordans as a 5-day auction, and they sold for $61. They're in rough shape, and they smell like smoke. They would sell for $200 in better condition. I sold these nativity scene figures for $35. I paid $10 about a month ago. This Nesco roaster took about 8 months to sell. I paid $2 for it at the bins, and it sold for $50. This Mr. Christmas decoration took about 3 weeks to sell. I paid $6.99, and it sold for $30. This massager was in one of my recent videos. I picked this up about 6 days ago, and it sold for $125. I paid $2. I paid $2 for this hot cocoa maker 2 days ago, and it sold for $20. I picked up this Merry Christmas sign about 3 weeks ago. It sold for $28, and I paid $4. These super shooters usually only sell during Christmas for me. I paid $2 for this 6 months ago, and it sold for $28. I picked up this vintage terrarium for $5 at an estate sale, and it sold within a few hours of me listing. I took a $200 offer. If it was in better condition, I could have sold it for about double the price. These lights sold for $50. I paid $2 for them at the bins about 4 months ago. It took 8 months for this bunny to sell. I paid $4. It sold for $28. I paid $5 for 2 of these. They both sold for $27.50 within 3 days of listing. I like picking up light items like this at the bins. I might have paid 10 cents for this, and it sold for $12. These coasters took about 6 months to sell. I paid $2, and they sold for $20. I just got this drafting arm listed. I paid $5. It sold for $165, and it sold within a day. It Works products are definitely worth looking up when you find them. These expired in 2017 and sold for $50. Picked this setup at a garage sale. The DS sold for $62.50, and one game has sold for $16. Some HP calculators sell for over $500. This one sold for $42 within 24 hours of me posting. Cat telephones are definitely Bolos. I paid $3.99 for this one, and it sold within 2 weeks. Definitely look up the model number if you find any of these. This bidet was a quick sale. It sold in less than 12 hours. I paid $3.99, and it sold for $24. Grandeur Noel is definitely a holiday Bolo brand. I only paid $6.99 for this, and it sold for $135 within the first 3 weeks of listing. I paid $5.99 for this club pan about 2.5 weeks ago, and it sold on eBay for $45 plus shipping. The avocado green color definitely helped with the price. These hot dots took over a year to sell. I paid $3.99 at Salvation Army, and they sold on eBay for $40 plus shipping. These spoons were part of a set. They sold for $12, and they were all profit. I've already made my money back on the other items that I've sold. This is the second time I've sold these mugs. My last buyer wanted to cancel the sale. These sold for $30. I paid $3, and they took 6 months to sell. I picked this rubber spatula up at the bins 2 weeks ago. It sold for $20. I paid 50 cents. This PS4 bag took about 3 weeks to sell. I paid $3 for it, and it sold for $18 on eBay plus shipping. These Merrell boots took about a week and a half to sell. I picked them up at the bins. I paid $1, and they sold for $35 plus shipping on eBay. I paid $1.50 for all of these bottles that sold. This set sold for $55. This set also sold for $55, and they sold in about 3 hours. This single bottle sold for $45. They all went to the same buyer and they paid $150 plus shipping. These two larger bottles sold for $85 to a different buyer. These are all vintage 1995 Playtex drop-in bottles. This Santa's Workshop windmill sold for $48 and I paid $6.99 about 2 months ago. I paid $1 for these Sorel boots at a garage sale about 4 months ago and they sold for $23. I picked up this little radio about 3 months ago and I paid $1.99 for it and it sold for $62. I paid $6.99 for this Empire Blow Mold Baby Jesus and it sold within 3 days for $42. I maybe paid a quarter for this spoon rest at the bins and it sold in 2 days for $12. This rock band set was new, just open box. I paid $60 for it and it sold for $135 in 4 days on Mercari. I profited around $56 on this. I picked up this set of cassettes probably a year and a half ago at the bins. I paid around 75 cents for it and it sold for $35. Discontinued beauty products sell consistently for me. This is a discontinued Salon Selective shampoo and conditioner. I picked up a lot of this at an online auction. I sold one set for $42. This set I let go for $28. I paid $1 for these shams probably 7 months ago at the bins and they sold for $13. I might have paid a nickel for this computer game about a year and a half ago at the bins and it sold for $19 on eBay. This was an international sale. I've never been so happy to sell something for $16 in my entire life. I probably had this for 2 years. It was probably only a $5 profit, but I'm so glad to get it off of my shelf. This VCR sold within 20 minutes of listing. I paid $4.99 and it sold for $55 plus shipping. I paid a quarter for this Fantasia VHS about 4 months ago at the bins and it sold for $30 on Facebook Marketplace. These Mr. Coffee iced tea makers are Bolos. I picked this up for $4.99. It sold in a month for $35. I sold this little tiny Barbie shoe for $12. I picked this up in a lot a few months ago. This is 100% profit. This neck traction machine I picked up for $4.99 at Goodwill and it sold within 2 weeks of listing. It sold for $60 plus shipping. This Holly Jolly Rock Santa was $3.99 at Goodwill. It sold within 2 weeks and he sold for $35 plus shipping. I paid a quarter for this decanter at a yard sale and it sold for $35 within 24 hours of me listing this on eBay and it was missing the lid. I paid $20 for this entire box of bottles at a yard sale and I sold this bottle for $14.99 plus shipping on eBay and it took about 3 days to sell. I paid $4 for this entire box of Chevy emblems at a yard sale and I sold this one for $15. I picked up a blender for $4.99 at the thrift store, but it was pretty dirty and I didn't feel like cleaning it, so I just listed the cup. It sold for $30 in 3 days. I paid $2 for this perfume at a yard sale. It sold within 24 hours for $37 on Mercari. And then these Wen products, I paid $2 for them. They sold for $55 in 12 hours. This Robert Graham shirt sold in about 5 days. I bought it for $25 at a garage sale and it sold for $110. These next two items are a bundle somebody put together on Poshmark. They bought this underwear and bra set and then these Givenchy tights, and I might have paid $2 for both of these items and they sold for $30. It took about a week for this coffee maker to sell. I paid $7 for it at a garage sale and it sold for $50. These shams probably took a year to sell. I paid $4 for them and they sold for $30. It took 6 months for these Crocs to sell. I paid $1 at the bins and they sold for $30 on Poshmark. I paid 50 cents for this Franklin Covey planner and it sold for $15. This probably took about 3 months to sell. Okay guys, so that's it for today's bonus video. I will be putting out another one of my normal either thrifting or estate sale videos between now and Sunday sometime. We have a family party tomorrow. Saturday, my husband's car is in a car show, and then Sunday is football. So I have no idea when I will get that video out, but I promise it will come out before Sunday evening for sure. But let me know what you guys think. I have enough of these what sold videos to put out one of these videos once a week, probably for the next couple of months. It's totally up to you guys. Let me know in the comments if you want to see this type of content or not. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all of you, and I will see you on my next video in the next couple of days.